and he's talking up this guy, just like, oh, yeah, they say they're an oppressed minority, but like, men's suicide rates, and blah, 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 blah. And guess what? Since I'm a feminist, I am especially attuned to snap to attention when I hear the phrase men's suicide rates. And I'm just like wondering too, like, why did you bring your shit here, dude? Can you like not look around that this is like not your crowd? Everyone in this organic coffee shop is like writing a screenplay about how they were bullied. Like, this is not your jammy. And so after I hear men's suicide rates, I look at him and I'm like, oh my god, are you a men's rights activist?
So, hey guys, what's up? RossDunneIE. Look at all this. Look at all these graphics and all that. This is Felfop's video. He posted it last night in response to a video that I posted yesterday. Yeah, probably. Yeah, yesterday. That little video clip, that little bit in the beginning, that is everything wrong with third wave aggressive feminism. I guess Felfop would kind of posted it to make a point, and point taken. He's right. There's definitely something to that. It's ironic because the woman in this video acknowledges stuff like male suicide rates, and then says, "Do you have to bring it here?" No, probably not. But in Felfop's defense and in the defense of MRAs, if they try and bring it elsewhere, let's just say, I don't know, a safe space for men, people like her will pull a fire alarm. So I get it. I get that. That's a perfectly legitimate thing to say. For sure. I ain't even going to fucking disagree with that. That's this sort of woman, the sort of person, the sort of radical third wave feminist that I myself can't stand. That's the sort of person that people like Christina Hoff Sommers has spent her career, or at least her more recent years in her field, fighting against. That sort of victim, that there are no complaints but my complaints. And look at this girl. She's a third wave feminist, not this kid. But the girl in the previous clip there, she's obviously, spoiled rich white girl, trying to find her niche. But, whatever. I'm going to let Felfop's video play a bit, and I'm going to sort of discuss what he says. I agree with him on a lot of his points. So I think this is just going to be a final wrap-up video. So let's go.
Hey there YouTube, Felfop here. I've got a short response video to make to RossDunneIE. He's got a small channel and he made a response video to my video trying to convince some members of Gamergate to join the MRM. And he seems reachable. He identifies as a feminist, but he compares himself more to Christina Hoff Sommers, and he's a non-Lacey Green authoritarian style feminist. I looked at a couple of his other videos real briefly, and he speaks out against social justice warrior type of thought policing stuff. So he's not one of the ones I spoke of in my last video. That just they're fucking, there's no point. He's got a brain, so I'm going to talk to him because he made a few things there that basically, to use what Bane would say, that he's drank the poison Kool-Aid. And that's nothing against you, Ross. That's what it's there for, is for people to drink. So we all, as Bane will say, the reason his skull is in that jar full of it because it soaks your brain your entire life.
Cool analogy. I'm not a huge comic book fan. I know who Bane is, but that's fine. I don't really I can't really respond to that. I mean, if you think that my viewpoint is as a result of indoctrination, um, I'd have to disagree. I don't, as I've said a couple of times, I don't accept all the points that are made by sort of radical third wavers. I don't accept that sort of spiteful hatred that they put out. Um, but I could see how, if you're sort of diametrically opposed to a lot of what the modern movement represents, then sure, I can understand your perspective. Let's keep going.
But the first thing that you bring up, and rightfully so, well, basically for everyone else, the crux of his video is, I'll link it down here, the crux of his video basically is that the men's rights movement shouldn't blame feminists for their issues. And I understand where you're coming from. There's certain issues like more men garbage collectors that really doesn't have anything to do with feminism per se. But the examples you bring up that are the critical ones, this is actually why we oppose feminism. In your video, Ross, you say that we don't know for sure how come women get children more after a divorce or whatever in family court. And we don't, and it's arguably that's losing being saddled with the kids afterwards, which any estranged father out there will scream and yell at you. So I'm glad that I'm making this video now, because a month ago, 2 months ago, I'd have laid into you with 2 barrels for that. And that's no offense to you. That's just where my emotions were at the time, because I didn't know where my fucking son even was.
So, fair point. I definitely wasn't. I kind of sussed actually from your first video, and from your intros and from your content that you're passionate about your kids. You love your kids, and I definitely would never take away that. And I'm glad that you really hold on to that in that way. I can only speak from my own experience, and as I have done on my own videos, I didn't have a similar upbringing. You're one of the good guys, clearly, you are. But I come from a time and a generation where, and maybe it's a cultural thing in where I live, where up until very recently, boys could never do any wrong. And boys benefited from a very serious extended childhood. I don't want to name names. I don't want to shame my own family, but I've seen it happen a lot more where fathers desert mothers. And the father is the inconsistent individual in the family structure. Again, I'm not shitting on people like you and, men in your position. Clearly, you're a devoted, a caring, and attentive father. And I'm sorry I touched the nerve. I didn't mean to do that. But I'm seeing the other side of it as a kid who was not so much abandoned, but just kind of wasn't wanted by his own parental figure. And I know a lot of people my age for whom, again, the deviant aspect in the family structure was the male. I'm not saying that's a rule. I'm not saying that's a general principle. I'm just saying it was my personal experience. And again, this is sort of the crutch that I think that this is the point that modern feminists are trying to get at, that society expected the boys would be boys, and that women would naturally have to shoulder that burden. You go on to refute that, and we'll pick up. We'll keep going.
Thanks to that whole mess. So yeah. Anyway, but you say that you're not sure. Nobody can know for sure where it came from. Actually, we do know where it came from, and feminists, they argue against it like typical big red crap. Blah, 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 blah. It's part of our list. We don't want you to lose your kids after divorce. But Original first wave feminism starts with tender year doctrine back in the 1860s. Before that, men had their kids. After a divorce, men were assumed to have the money to raise the children. The women were not, so the women didn't get the kids. Almost never did the woman get the kids. Early feminism pushes in the tender years doctrine. This gets revamped a couple of times, and by the end of the 1800s, in the Western world, almost every single time a man and a woman got divorced, the woman got the kids. Now you fast forward that to the modern day, and you still have the same issue. I've gone over this with a couple of people, and I'll even link a video down here that I made about it, and I'll put a number of links for this kind of stuff here so you can see. Voice for Men's done this legwork a while back. The National Organization of Women, which is a feminist organization, now has opposed shared parenting in the United States every single time it comes up. And they win. They win. So men's rights activists try to change this. Fathers' rights activists try to change this. And feminism stops it. Feminism created women keeping the children after a divorce, and feminism has fought for it consistently. And again, I'll post links here so you can see that that's just Kool-Aid talking, man. There.
I did sort of check out the links. I mean, this wasn't a conclusion that I came to by myself. But again, I think this is different fields of feminism actually fighting with itself, more so than anything else. I can see the point, though. See, that's the thing. Whenever we talk about one specific kind of doctrine enforcing something, we often don't see that in the same sort of sphere of thought there's a movement against it. Obviously we see it quite clearly here. I see from my side of the aisle, and you see from yours, but I'm not refuting it. I checked out the links, I checked out the video. I consider my opinion updated on the subject for sure. Yeah, definitely.
That's just bullshit that they use to pretend that their dictionary definition and their real definition are one and the same. You're closer, sounds like, to their dictionary definition, but not have nothing to do with what they really do. Now you see that with then you step from there to education. Now I'm going to quote or link an article down here, but I'm going to quote something that's out of it, and this is from Canada, but academic researchers begin to explore why, following these feminist and government intervention throughout the late 20th century, boys are struggling to keep up. Embedded in the successful girls doctrine is a double form of gender reversal. I'll link that article here and a couple other things, but feminism has been taking an active role in trying to change the way schools are taught, classes are taught, and make it more friendly to girls, and as a default, it ends up being less friendly to boys. And this is even, you can even see this portrayed, especially in the U.S., with the number of people, the number of boys that end up on Ritalin and shit like that, the ADHD diagnosis. As Christina Hoff Sommers herself said, it's like they are being treated as defective girls.
Yeah, I completely agree with you there. I've mentioned that actually before in several videos, that the modern educational system is failing boys. It's not a controversial fact. It's an accepted fact. Nobody seems to want to talk about it. Feminists especially don't want to talk about it. I would imagine that falls under the purview of men's rights activism right now. And again, I can speak from my own personal education, where the curriculum went from being a curriculum which had kinetic activities that may have appealed more to boys, and instead switched over to the sorts of academic studies that were heavily based in theory. I think that's mostly what has happened in the educational system, is it's failed to accommodate the simple reality that for the most part, society still has very strong male and female gender roles, And I can't really speak for the science behind the biology of the differences in the male and female brain. That's a whole other kettle of fish, and you could piss off a lot of really fucking annoying people by bringing that up. But sure, no, I definitely agree with you there. The current Western model of education focuses far too much on intense theoretical learning, which historically boys have not done well with. I don't know what the answer to it is. I would certainly not. I see. I'm so hesitant to use the word blame and attack. I think in feminism's attempt to elevate girls, as I discussed in a previous video, it just assumed that boys were already elevated. It assumed that there was a social factor at play, which had very little to do with education, that just meant that boys succeeded without encouragement. And obviously, this is completely untrue, as we've seen a dramatic shift towards educational systems, which unfortunately skew in favor of women. I mean, you can talk about college enrollment statistics if you want. That's just a reality. I don't necessarily think that that position should be offensive to feminists. In fairness, I think feminists should be a little more willing to take on some responsibility for the changes in society that they have made. Because I'm not going to lie, I see it within the feminist movement that feminism seems to do this thing, and it's a legitimate critique of feminism, I think, where it makes a change to society and then moves on and doesn't really stick around to observe the change or have additional input in the change. It simply changes an aspect of society, then continues onwards with whatever trajectory it has, and then spends a lot of time talking about how it isn't making changes in society. I think that's as a feminist, you would need to be profoundly ignorant about the changes that feminism and the women's rights movement in general throughout the last century has made in Western society. It would be a lie to ignore all of it, and unfortunately, there have been consequences. Now, I've seen a lot of hardcore sort of radical third wave feminists then turn around and say, well, if we had to shed the blood of men in order to change our society, who the fuck cares? That's easy to say from an academic standpoint, but obviously the reality is that the consequences have been significant, at least in the educational system, for young boys. So I concede that point entirely.
There's a reason the men's rights movement has no choice but to do battle with feminism. Let's be honest. Feminism has way more power and sway, right? We would love to be able to use that. If they would really fight for the equality of men with them, make us all equal, that'd be great. But
I think the reason that feminism is so heavily swayed towards women's issues is because of the persistent reality that historically women didn't do so well. As I said before in the previous video, it does seem like society at large doesn't seem to be able to do any more than one thing at once. It seems that if we shift towards focusing on bringing women up and improving the quote-unquote standings of women, we go full hog. We ignore everything else and we go full hog, and obviously there are consequences there. And I'm not saying that, we're pretty much just ignoring everyone else now and feminism is ruling the Western world. I don't really think that's true. But I do see it, that we do seem to be sort of socially incapable of doing anything more, on focusing anything other than one thing at a time. The entire mainstream media system is structured in such a way that you could hear about a terrible story, and 2 weeks later, when something else has come along, you've completely forgotten about it. Remember Coney, 2012? Okay, that shit got weird with the dude who organized it. But, who the fuck knows anything about Joseph Coney now? So, I mean, again, I sort of grant that as a failure of everyone. I don't want to pin it to one particular ideology or something like that.
They don't. They have no problem marginalizing no white cis men allowed. And now I understand you don't agree with that, but that's what we face. And they try that.
And in fairness, you're winning on that. You're. It doesn't seem like it now. It in these early days. I can understand how people who are constantly being barraged, sort of, the fuck the white cis man movement. I think there's a fight back against that now, with the identification amongst primary academic circles of what we have come to call, quote unquote, the regressive left. I'm really happy about that. And I think core feminists like Christina Hoff Sommers and so on, they're happy that this is being acknowledged too, because it's true. The third wave feminism is going to a miserable, angry little place. And they're pissy little balls of hatred. And that's what they are. They are pissy little balls of hatred. But I think you're correct on that. I think that's a thing. But again, I think we're going to move away from that hopefully, Jesus Christ, over the next 5 years.
Shit in family court so brutal. Another quick couple of places: domestic violence, the Duluth model, the lack of due process in rape allegations, especially over there in the UK right now. Man, it's fucking insane. It's fucking insane, right?
Yeah, it is. And the thing about it is rape is a super complicated subject. A subject I've kind of personally not chimed in on a lot, because I want to say that the vast majority, the thing about it is, okay, when somebody is raped, obviously that's a serious issue, needs to be dealt with. You and I probably agree on that. But when somebody is falsely accused of rape, everyone's life gets destroyed. And I don't think false rape accusations happen as much as some people think they do, and I think they happen more than other people think they do. But false rape accusations are super dangerous. They cheapen the rape. They cheapen rape. It's a terrible thing. And the thing about it is, when a man is branded a rapist, in the same sense that when a man is branded a child molester or a pedophile, even if he clears his name in a court of law, the damage is done. People still sort of swerve away from him, and there is a real consequence to just being accused of rape, socially. So that's definitely true as well.
So these things feminists put in, and they adversely affect men disproportionately, very much so disproportionately. You even find feminist opposition to male birth control pills because it takes away women's power in the bedroom. Another one of the things that you mentioned was that that conversations about masculinity or about manliness or whatever should be between men. And to a large degree, you're right, but that stuff, again, is opposed by feminism. Again, I'll link some shit down here. Just trying to open a men's group on campus. Well,
yeah, sure, absolutely. Which brings me back to the point about the little video that you linked in the beginning. I totally agree that there should absolutely be a place where we can discuss things like this, where men should be able to have those conversations. And I'm definitely in agreement that the men's rights activism movement, at its core, should definitely cover those subjects. They're things that I'm interested in, but But at the same time, they're also things that feminism are interested in. Again, I keep trying to. I've tried to separate this thing. This sort of. I don't want to be this sort of fucking Macintosh, that John McIntosh child. I'm not that brand of feminist. I'm even sort of weakly labeling myself. I consistently label myself a gender egalitarian, and again, not scared of that fucking term. But people are having those conversations outside of the MRA circle as well. It's just not welcome in that sort of college campus, fucking purple hair Tumblr feminism. It's not a welcome conversation. But again, I think that particular brand of feminism isn't going to last the test of time, especially now with it being identified as a component pillar of regressive leftism and so on and so forth.
Well, it's not flying the feminist flag, so it's probably going to be a bunch of guys sitting around jacking off and playing PlayStation 3. That is pretty much exactly what they said. And yeah, they made some feminist groups of people made a video to undermine it, to get rid of it, and they succeeded. Much like the men's suicide meeting in Toronto, which, if you're not aware of that, you should look that one up.
Yeah, I'm aware of that. Those are shitty things to do. And there's no ideology which excuses that. It's not satisfactory. And people who do those sorts of things should be shamed, should be named and shamed. And for the most part, I think mainstream society kind of does. Unfortunately, again, men's rights activism fights this constant uphill battle against, visual perception. Anyway, I know all about this sort of shit, man. I support Gamergate. I've watched a media narrative be spun about something that isn't true. I've watched that shit happen. So I get where you're coming from there.
But yeah, they don't let us have these conversations. This is why we oppose them. It's not because we disagree with them on a lot of points, but if they would just stay the fuck out of the way of the issues that we're dealing with, we wouldn't have any problem. But it seems that anything that we do, they have an issue with and oppose us, even if we just want to talk about men killing themselves. So anyway, I think that's pretty much all there is to say on the subject. Thanks for making a video talking about it. I appreciate that, and hopefully you can hear what I had to say here, and you can see that we're not just mindlessly attacking feminists. There is a method to this madness. Have a good day, YouTube.
Yeah, definitely. I don't disagree with that. And I can't shit on you for those things. I mean, I wouldn't dare. And I think anyone who identifies as a feminist who does is a fucking baby. It's definitely true. I don't think that men should be excluded from having conversations about male issues. I don't think that the sort of attitude that radical third wavers have is presently helpful to the advancement of society at large, really. I think you make great points. So whilst I want you to sail your ship and find your golden shore. And that's really all I have to sort of say about it. So, yeah, I agree with you on most things. But thanks for having this conversation with me. It was great. It was really interesting. And I learned some things from the links that you put in the video. And hopefully, we might meet again somewhere else. Anyway, thanks for watching, guys. I'm Ross Dunn. Like, comment, subscribe.